Gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we are going to be discussing why I started doing my minimalist training, why you should start doing minimalist training too if it aligns with your goals. Before we get started, get your black coffee. Always have that on hand. I am deep in a flow state this morning. I am feeling fantastic, reflecting on my life, reflecting on the choices I intend to make, and the direction I'm planning on going. I'm fired up. I'm extremely grateful today. We got a good video here. I'm gonna be discussing, like I said, the minimalist training concepts, why I got started, what was going on in the areas that led to me making those changes, and why it could be very beneficial to you as well, making these changes in your training style. Particularly if you are someone who spends like 10 hours a week in the gym, upwards of even more than that. If you were spending like 2+ hours a session training, there might be some faults in your ideology, and I'm going to challenge that in this video and make you question why you were spending that much time in the gym, okay? So let's jump right in. Again, before we get started, I want to mention these videos are not gonna have much editing going on. There's not gonna be really much action happen in the actual video itself. It's meant to be more of a podcast. You're meant to sit down, have some coffee with me, maybe have your breakfast, maybe you're at the gym and you're just listening to this on the floor, whatever that may be, okay? Sit back, relax, absorb some ideas with me. We're gonna jump in about minimalist training. Now I have to tell you, I already finished my black coffee earlier in the video I recorded before this, but I have water in here. So, gotta rehydrate after discussing all those ideas. Minimalist training. This is going to become the bread and butter of this YouTube channel now. It's all I wanna talk about. Minimalist lifestyle. It's one of the most fascinating things I think is really out there for my own personal philosophy. Now, last thing I want to mention before we really jump into this, my mic is just acting up, the SD card, whatever that may be, so the audio quality is not going to be as good. I'll have that fixed for the next video. Anyways, why did I start minimalist training? Well, let's start with my story. Now, like many of you, I got into the gym because I wanted girls to like me. You know, everyone knows the age-old concept. The guy starts training because he knows that girls like muscles. Now, you find out later down the line that it's mostly guys who just care about the physique you built. But as you develop a deeper sense of why you want to train, a deeper sense of meaning behind that, you have to figure out deeper reasons to continue going, okay? It starts surface level before you can go deep. Now, always remember that. Loud noise. It starts surface level before you can go deep. Now, I get into the gym, I start training, I'm very heartbroken because a girl broke up with me. I, was not happy with where I was at in life, and I saw physicality as the thing I could control. I started running a lot, I started lifting heavy, I started figuring out, oh my gosh, the gym is something that I can control. And many of you are probably in that position right now. Maybe you just started working out because a girl broke your heart, or you're trying to attract a girl, or you're just trying to get started in knowing that it's improving your life. But I want to prevent you from getting stuck in becoming a gym cell. That is what happened to me. I became a gym cell. My story was very interesting. I came right out of COVID and really started taking the gym seriously. I was going every single morning at like 5 a.m. I would get to the gym, I would start training heavy, and I would be there for like 2.5 hours and then start my day after that. My life solely revolved around going to the gym and going to my minimum wage job over and over again. And I did that for so long that I just became this gym cell. There was no social aspect to my life. There was no fun to my life. All I did was eat clean food, go to the gym. Now, not generally bad things. Don't get me wrong. Maybe every guy has to have some sort of phase like that in his life before he can learn that that is not the only way to live. But there was an aspect of just only having that was not sustainable. Most of us have goals where, we want to build a fantastic business. We want to be achieving self-actualization. We want to be spiritually fulfilled. We want to live a life of abundance as well as grit and discipline. But if you only solely stack up the points of your fitness capabilities, it's much more difficult to then look at the whole because there's other areas in your life that are now missing. All the pillars of your self-improvement life. There's all these other factors, but I was not working on any of those. I would only invest into the gym. So this is my argument for you. If you are only investing into the gym, to scale back that approach, to do the only crucial things you need to be doing in the gym and building a life outside of that. Ultimately, that is what this minimalist training is about, is getting into the gym for only what is necessary and getting out and then building a life you absolutely love outside of that. We are in control of building the lives that we want. So it's crucial to remember that you are the only one who can change to build the life that you want, okay? If you are living in a cycle, break the cycle. Now, let's talk about a little bit deeper what happened after I became obsessed with just training. Day in, day out, I would get up super early, go to the gym. I would not sleep much either. I would be working late most nights. Some nights at my job, I would be there till about like 11 o'clock at night. Clock out, get back home, and wake up again at like 4 a.m. so I could get ready to go to the gym. I was getting like no sleep. So at that point too, it's like, it doesn't matter how much you're training, how good your diet is. If you aren't sleeping, that's another key pillar to building a physique that's actually high quality. If you aren't sleeping, you're not gonna get any of the gains. And I had to learn that because I wasn't sleeping properly. All I wanted to do was prove to people that I was waking up early and I was working hard. And it became this thing of like, I was obsessed with proving to other people that I worked hard at my endeavors, which is toxic in itself as well. I'm still working on breaking the cycle because there are times when I'm wanting people to notice how disciplined I am, but it's not about people noticing, it's for your own self-fulfillment. So just that's a side tangent, but just be aware of stuff like that in your own life. Anyways, my life centered around training and I became a gym cell. No social life, no outings, nothing fun. I never did anything of interest to other people. I never even really pursued my own interests other than just training heavy. Things started to change when I began to actually incorporate a minimalist style approach to my training. So I first discovered this idea through Mike Mentzer. Many of you know him. He's a fascinating character from the 80s, like golden age of bodybuilding. He would compete with Arnold on stage. They had their own beef. And there were two different styles of training. There was the Arnold training where you just do massive volume, do as much as you can, get jacked, and that still works. Don't get me wrong. Intensity with that style of training is fantastic, especially if you don't really know what direction you need to go in. The minimalist approach is a bit more of an advanced technique. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have spent some time in the gym to understand why this style of training can be beneficial to your approach. Mentzer kind of introduced that idea. It started to blow up on TikTok a bit. People started talking about high intensity training and how you should properly approach your training. And Mentzer was one of the first people who really introduced me to that idea. Now, I've never done much of a deep dive into his actual ideas and studies, but it was more so the overarching idea of training less, you can get more out of the gym. Once I realized that, I started to scale back on the amount of volume that I was doing. Like I said, I was in the gym for like 6 days a week, training for like 2+ hours. That is a lot of time that I'm spending just in the gym alone. That doesn't leave me space to pursue other endeavors. How are you going to get a wife or a girlfriend if you're just spending that much time in the gym? How are you going to build a business with the max amount of efficiency if you're going to spend that much time in the gym? Some people do it, don't get me wrong, but that's the questions I started to ask myself. How was I going to develop spiritually in my relationship with God the Father if I'm just spending all this time in the gym? It was becoming an idol in my life, okay? We don't want idols in our lives. The gym should not become an idol in your life. Minimalist training prevents the gym from becoming an idol in your life. It's all connected, bro. It is all connected. So I was just starting to become introduced to these ideas on social media about minimalist training. Here is where things really started to change. I started to get other things going on in my life. The first thing that really contributed to this was developing my first social media brand, which was Antochi Brand Online. Those of you who've seen it, you know that, like you've seen the growth that came from building that business, from building a personal brand and bringing in people who genuinely cared about my ideas. I suddenly had something else to work on outside of just the gym and outside of just my minimum wage job. And it brought so much purpose and passion to my life that I was like, okay, I need to get down this gym time that I'm spending over and over again. Now, this video is not about going into specifics of action steps you can take. If that is something you want specific details on, check out the first link in the description below. Okay, there I have my A to Z program on how my minimalist training approach works. If you aren't interested in purchasing a product where it's A to Z A to Z specifics on how to actually execute on these ideas. I have other videos that go into more depth on these topics. Just check out my channel. I have tons of videos that I'm posting. All these videos are gonna have so much sauce, and it's gonna be long durations as well. So check out my other videos. Click the first link in the description if you want actual, like, I call this autistic level of detail breakdown on how you can become self-taught in this minimalist training philosophy. So if that's something you're interested in, check out that below. But things started to change when I was introduced to these ideas, and I began to have a purpose outside of the gym. I began to have things going on outside of my life, outside of the gym, where I just needed to actually condense down that time. So for you yourself, if you are spending an egregious amount of time in the gym these days, I would recommend for you is to question those ideologies. Am I doing that because that is the only thing I have going for me? Or am I doing that because I genuinely have some massive goal of like, oh, I'm gonna become a bodybuilder. I need to be spending this amount of time in the gym. Professional bodybuilder. Really look at what your goals are. You have to drop your ego and look at the actions. Are they aligning with your goals? If you haven't created any goals, if you couldn't tell me right now, if I were to stop talking about this idea and say, hey, what are your goals? Could you tell me in the next 3 seconds? If you can't, you then need to take a step after this video, get out some paper. There's that Luke Belmar video that is so funny, but this is great advice. He goes, when was the last time you sat down and you took some notes? Maybe wrote on some paper? He says it in that voice, right? That's such good advice. It's hilarious because he says it in such a weird way, and there's all these people staring at him, and he's got those big piercing blue Aryan eyes. But besides that, when was the last time you sat down with a piece of paper and wrote about your goals, wrote about what you want out of life? Because if you haven't done that, you don't have actually anything you're aiming for. If you're shooting at a non-existent target, you'll never actually hit anything, okay? You know, if you were an archer and you just kept shooting, what are you aiming for? The target may be way off that way and you're shooting way off this way, left and right, you know? It's important to have a goal because if you aren't actually having a reason behind why you're doing anything, the minimalist training won't make sense to you. Minimalist training is designed to integrate with actual life goals. When you have something you're aiming at, sit down after this video and write out, okay, what do I want out of my life? I want this, this, and this. Write out like 3 things, 3 to 5 things, okay? Then from there, you can realize, okay, maybe I actually don't want to become a bodybuilder. Maybe I don't want to have the gym be the sole thing that I'm doing all day long. I don't want to be a gym cell. Drop the ego to the side. Ego is the way. Every single time I've ever assessed myself or anyone and how they could actually make progression, they have to realize, myself included, dropping your ego to the side and your pride that is wrapped up in who you are as a person, putting it all to the side and objectively looking at what you can do to change your life and go towards the direction you are trying to go towards, then you will understand why having goals and actually taking the proper actions in congruence with those goals is the most important thing you could possibly do with your life, okay? Minimalist training goes hand in hand with having proper goals. So that's the biggest advice that I want you guys to take from this video. Now, if you are really looking for in-depth reasons as to why you should take on minimalist training, I wrote out a couple things that I think are really important. So training less, one of the biggest things that I actually gained from my minimalist training was more muscle, believe it or not. Once I condensed down to training into basically like I have 4 exercises to hit for this session, it's probably gonna be the only day I hit chest, for example. I need to learn how to train with proper intense focus that I actually get the gains I need to from this week compared to my 2+ hour gym sessions where, yeah, it's pretty easy to get those gains because all you're doing is just reps, 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 and wasting all this time in the gym. I learned how to gain the proper amount of muscle with the input that was the least needed to get the maximum output, okay? Saving energy for other areas in my life because I had goals outside of the gym. It's all connected, bro. On top of that, I gained way more mental clarity. One of the biggest reasons that stemmed from me getting more mental clarity was, first off, I had a purpose, I had a mission. I had other things I was working on with my personal brand, my social media, things that I actually cared about. I then had the clarity to be like, okay, I need to move in this direction. Gym training is not the only thing I'm working on, okay? Then on top of that, I started to get more sleep. I stopped doing that cycle of going to bed at like 11, 10:30, 11, and waking up at 4 a.m. I started focusing on going to bed at like 10 o'clock and then waking up at like 7 a.m. Now, me, I'm a morning person, okay? I love getting up at 4:30 a.m. If I had the capabilities right now with the lifestyle I'm living to go to bed at like 7:30 and then wake up at 4:30, I would. If I could go to bed at like 8:30, wake up at 4:30, I would, but that's not realistic towards my goals. It all comes back down to goals. So, I focused on getting in my 8 to 9 hours, and my mental clarity shot up from this minimalist training. My mental clarity became so much greater. The scope of the lifestyle that I could see became massive because I was not just wasting away as a gym cell. Don't be a gym cell, have other goals, all right? Then I had more time for social life. I was only spending like 3 to 4 hours a week in the gym. So outside of that, I had to start filling that time with other activities. One of my favorite things I do now is I play tennis like every single weekend. It's such a fun sport. It's still active. It's still me doing something healthy for my body, but now it's like social. You know, I'm inviting people like, hey, I'm going to the tennis courts this weekend. Come play with me. I got an extra racket. Or like playing pickleball on the weekends. Fantastic cardio. Don't hate. If you've never tried tennis or pickleball, amazing cardio. It's going to change your life. I promise you that. And I started doing other social outings. You know, I got a girlfriend who I actually really, really love. And I started doing things that are super fun with my girlfriend. I created a life outside of the gym. And I'm still working on and building and molding that life to be the best life I possibly can accomplish. But it started with the minimalist training and realizing I needed more out of life, that I had other goals outside of just training. My social life improved. Then, this is a huge one. I stopped obsessing over food. This has been a really interesting one recently. Being a former fat kid, I used to just eat a ton of food. My parents would give me like frozen burritos. We would go out to like McDonald's and stuff like that's besides the point. You know, we've cleaned up the diet now, but I also used to just be super obsessed with only eating as clean as humanly possible, where I would only have like Chipotle, but I stopped obsessing over all the numbers as much, and I streamlined so much of my diet now. It's like I can hit my goals, I can hit my protein without being borderline like mental health obsessed with my food, because again, it's about integrating these goals with integrating the lifestyle with the goals that you actually want to accomplish, because being in shape, that's still part of my lifestyle vision, and I still need to be doing the proper amount of healthy inputs in my diet, to accomplish a healthy physique, because it's part of my goals, but it's not my only obsession. So if you're interested in learning how to streamline your diet, I have a whole video on that for my minimalist diet approach. Go check that out. But streamlining my diet took away from all of this like extra hours I was spending like constantly obsessing over how I was going to cook my protein. I would sit there and like have, you know, an hour to 2 hour long lunches where I was cooking a steak and then having all these proteins and everything cooked with it, where it's like I'm spending this egregious amount of time just making food when there's more I could be doing with my life. It's all connected to there's more you can get out of life, okay? And then the last thing, I started to have way more fun. Life is still about having fun, okay? There's a really crucial factor in that. Don't forget, there is the grind. The grind is more fun than fun is fun. But don't get me wrong, there are days where you should just unwind. Even God, the creator of everything in this universe, rested on the seventh day. You mere mortal, you mere man, should be resting once a week on the seventh day. And those days, go have some fun, unwind a little bit. You know, this is Sunday for me. I'm recording these videos because they're incredibly fulfilling. After this, you know, it's currently 9:42 a.m. I got church at 11 a.m. I can't wait to go to church with my family. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm going to have a nice unwinding day. You know, clean up the room a little bit, reset, have some good quality food, and relax and have some fun. That's ultimately what is one of the most crucial aspects of life, is unwinding, having some fun. Because it's not all about work. Work is crucial. Camera's starting to overheat, so we're going to wrap up soon. Work is crucial, but so is having fun. That pretty much does it for this video. So if you guys enjoyed watching my argument as to why minimalist training is important, and you feel swayed to want to learn more about minimalist training, again, click the first link in the description below. Check out my program, A to Z, autistic level details of how to get into the best shape of your life, streamlining that process through minimalist training. Check it out below. I appreciate you guys watching this video. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later. Peace.